right, good evening and welcome to Planning and Zoning Board meeting, City of Lake City, 11 July 2023. This time I ask that all rise for our invocation. Mr. Nelson, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, thank you for your many blessings. Bless our deliberations this day. Give us wisdom to make our sound recommendations. We ask for these blessings in your name, Lord. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very nice, you may be seated. Mr. Angelo, roll call of the board.
Ms. McCollum? Here. Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Mr. Cooper? Mr. Mann?
Here.
Mr. Carter?
Present.
And Mr. Leidick?
Present. Very nice, a quorum is present. Electronically, you should have received distribution of meeting minutes from our previous meeting, which occurred on 6th of June 2023. Following review of those electronic documents, are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes as submitted?
So the initial approval of the past minutes should be seconded by Ms. McCollum.
Thanks to Mr. McCollum.
Yes.
Any additional corrections? There being none, at this time, do we have a motion for their adoption?
Motion to adopt minutes of 6/6/23.
Motion to adopt and a second. All in favor, hand vote. Aye. Hands down. Like sign opposed. Unanimously, we have minutes passed. Very good. Moving forward into old business. Petition SPR 23-10. Petition submitted by Carol Chadwick, acting as agent for Affiliated Property Management owner, for a site plan review for Aspire Dental Addition in the Commercial Intensive Zoning District, located on Columbia County Parcel 07604-102, which is regulated by Land Development Regulations, City of Lake City, Section 4.13. Seeing no one in attendance to speak either for or against, this was a continued petition from the 2nd of May. There being no one here to speak either for or against, recommend that the continuance remain in place until such time attends to speak. Is there anything you need to add as far as an update on your end, Mr. Angelo?
No, it's basically the same spot as with North Florida Planning Council. We're waiting on them to get back to us as far as the text amendment.
Anything from our barrister? No. Very nice. All right, petition SPR 23-10 remains in a state of continuance. Seeing that there is no new business and no workshop items for the Planning and Zoning Board portion of tonight's festivities, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second by hand vote. All in favor? Aye. Hands down. Likewise opposed. Seeing none, we stand in adjournment on planning and zoning. Moving forward to the Board of Adjustment, City of Lake City, 11 July 2023. Please note that the agenda has been amended, reflecting the pulling of an item. Roll call shall remain the same. By a quick hand sign, does everyone have the amended series of minutes? They having been amended, do we have a motion for the adoption of the, or I'm sorry, not the minutes, but the agenda. Do we have a motion for the adoption of the amended agenda as submitted to us through growth management?
Motion adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by hand sign.
Aye.
All in support? Aye. Hands down. Likewise opposed. Very nice. The agenda has been passed as amended and distributed through channels. Meeting minutes, last time this board convened was on the 4th of April, 2023. I trust everyone has had the chance to review the electronic copies of the meeting minutes as distributed. At this time, are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes as submitted? Seeing and hearing none at this time, do we have a motion for their adoption?
Motion to adopt meeting minutes 4/4/23.
Second.
Motion to adopt and a second. All in favor by hand sign? Aye. Hands down. Likewise opposed. Very good, unanimously. We have meeting minutes from meeting of 4/4/2023. There's no old business before this board. New business, Appeal 23-01, submitted by Guy Norris, attorney on behalf of Florida Gateway Hotels, LLC, appealing of new construction permit 0000466609 for Circle K's expansion and adding of high-flow fuel pumps. Appeal submitted on March 29th, 2023 at 2:14 p.m. You will note in your agenda, this item has been moved to a meeting in August and that has not yet been scheduled. This time, Mr. Angelo, is there anything that you need to say into the record to brief the board about the pulling of this item?
No, not at this time.
Council? Nothing from council, very nice. We will see this at an upcoming meeting. There being no workshop items at this time, do we have a motion to adjourn Board of Adjustment, City of Lake City?
Motion to adjourn, Board of Adjustment, City of Lake City.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. By hand vote, all in favor of adjournment? Aye. Hands down. Likewise opposed? Very nice. We are done with Board of Adjustment. Third and final item of the evening. Historic Preservation Agency, City of Lake City shall come to order, 11 July 2023. Roll call shall remain the same. Meeting minutes of our June 6th, 2023 meeting were distributed electronically. I trust everyone has had the opportunity to review those meeting minutes. At this time, are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes as electronically submitted? Seeing none at this time, do we have a motion for their adoption?
Motion to adopt minutes 6/6/23.
Second.
We have a motion to adopt, and we have a second. All in favor, hand vote? Aye. All opposed, like sign? Very good, we have meeting minutes. This time we're gonna move into old business. COA 23-16, submitted by Lake City Columbia County Historical Museum as owner, requesting a certificate of appropriateness in a residential office zoning district as established in section 4.10.1 of Land Development Regulations, City of Lake City, located within the viewshed of the, this should read Lake Isabella Historic District, please. As established in section 10.11.2 of Land Development Regulations on property described as City of Lake City Parcel 12739. This is a continuance of an item that appeared before us on the 2nd of May, 2023, and was continued due to, I believe, a lack of a quorum. At this time, would anyone wish to declare a potential conflict of interest and recuse themselves from discussion on COA 23-16?
As a member of the museum board, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Mr. Angelo, do we have paperwork he'll have to fill out in that regard?
Yes, but I do not have it with me.
I thought I did one in June.
You did, I think, I'll find out if that holds over, I think it does.
Okay.
Because it's being continued.
Okay.
So it should stay with it.
I did fill that out.
All right, with the 4 remaining members of this board that do not have a established conflict of interest in reference to petition COA 23-16, a quorum is present and we can hear this petition. Mr. Angelo, would you care to introduce the petition?
right, so this item was part of the consent agenda from the May meeting, and it has been continued since then. It is for the replacement of an existing sign with a new sign. Same size, same character. The only thing that changed was the color of the trim of the sign. They went with a brown, which matched the trim of the building, so it looks very consistent to the building.
Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak either for or against petition COA 23-16 as proposed by the owner? Seeing and hearing none at this time. Do we have a motion, or I'm sorry, do we have discussion amongst members of the board in regards to the petition? Prior to us bringing this to a vote, was there any ex parte communication that took place between any member of the board and anyone representing the owner or agent bringing forth this petition? There being none, at this time, do we have a motion to either approve or disapprove petition COA 23-16 as presented?
Motion to approve COA 23-16 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Final discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Mr. Angelo, would you please call the yeas and the nays?
Ms. McCollum?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper? Mr. Mann?
I'm abstaining.
No, recused. We were not allowed to abstain.
I'm recused.
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
And Mr. Lighty?
Yay. Very nice. By unanimous acclaim, COA 23-16 has been approved. There being no further old business, we move to new business, of which there is only a consent agenda to be looked at. These are items that came before the board came before the Department of Growth Management, but were determined to be either minor or maintenance only issues related to listed or viewshed proximal locations to the historic districts or individually listed properties on the National Register of Historic Places and in the city's planning atlas. This time, Mr. Angelo, would you care to describe the consent agenda properties so that we may ratify the affirmative decisions made by the Department of Growth Management?
All right, so the first one is for COA 23-21. It is for 244 Southeast Brown Street, Lake City, Florida. They are replacing the existing dark gray shingles with new English pewter shingles, so very consistent to what was already on there.
Any questions? Moving forward.
All right, next one is for COA 23-22. That one is for 294 Southwest Columbia Ave. And they were looking to replace the existing shingle roof with a new metal gavel loom consistent with the homes in the area. This one did go from shingles to the metal, which is very consistent with the area. A lot of the homes around the area already had that. Reason this one went on the consent agenda is they had to have it done by a certain time, otherwise they lost their insurance. And that's why we did that, even though it was from shingles to metal.
Any questions, comments? Always like seeing some of these old birds go from shingle back to the original metal. Moving forward.
Next one is COA 23-23. It is for 235 Southwest St. James. And that one they are looking to replace the existing dark gray shingles with charcoal shingles, so still consistent.
St. James, you mean St. John's?
Or St. John's, sorry.
Okay. Questions, comments? Moving forward.
And the final one is COA 23-24 for 401 Southwest Alachua Ave. This one, they were tearing off the existing metal roof and installing a new metal roof. This is one that had already been done. And we noticed it and had them go ahead and do the permits and everything and the COA, but it was already done before we even got the application. And but it was very consistent with the area. So they replaced the metal with metal, and it was consistent with the neighboring property too.
Now, in the past, well, before we get to in the past, you say this was done without a COA. It was likewise also done absent a city-required building permit to
Correct.
re-roof a structure.
Yeah, so in that case, what happens is the building fees, whatever the permit fees are doubled. So you pay double the fees. But it was an oversight on theirs, it was an office mistake.
And we rarely see these, but when we do,
Yeah.
traditionally, things that, absent a COA and absent a building permit, traditionally, those have come to us on regular agenda. Is this a clarification that we'll start seeing these on the consent agenda more often?
I think so, because it's already done, and it was the reason we went ahead and put it on the consent agenda, and it went from metal to metal. And so it's very consistent with what was already there, and but it was already a roof that was already done at the same time.
So that's now pretty much the policy moving forward. If they have a whoopsie doodle and do
Yeah.
something without any permature whatsoever,
Unless it's
we can still
something,
cover that on consent. They don't have to appear in person and get a finger wagged at them.
unless it's something to do, like it's an old historic, like the old metal roof, where, something like that, something that was
Something
very
that would not
historic.
be minor or maintenance
Correct.
only.
Yeah, then we would put that on the regular agenda.
All right, any additional questions or comments? All right, at this time, do we have a motion to ratify all of the items presented as part of the consent agenda by Mr. Angelo?
Motion to ratify all items presented as part of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Give Mr. Angelo a second to write that down in his notes. And then we'll call for the yeas and the nays, Mr. Angelo.
All right, Ms. McCullough,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yay.
Mr. Manning,
Yes.
Mr. Carter,
Yay.
and Mr. Lighty.
Yay. Very nice. The consent agenda has been ratified by unanimous acclaim of the board. That concludes our new business for the evening. Only item left for tonight is a discussion regarding the origin, legitimacy, and validity of the Historic Preservation Agency, City of Lake City, as presented by Mr. Robert Angelo, representing the Department of Growth Management. Come on down, mon frere.
Okay, so kind of give the board an update of where we are at and what was brought up at the last meeting. There was some questions around the legitimacy of the Historic Preservation Agency. And everything that we have researched so far, that I've had legal counsel researching, it does not show any sign that the board was not legitimized. And that it was adopted by the state of Florida. And we have all the forms from that, where that was adopted. There's two different ways a historic district can be adopted. One, or three, yeah. One, which is the local edition, which is what you see in our LDR. That is going to, like if a city wants to adopt a local area and make it a historic, that's the way the procedure you would go with that. Then there's the nationally or state recognized historic district. And that's more of what we have through the City of Lake City here with the Lake Isabella and the Lake DeSoto districts. And
Well, there's a separation between the state versus the national level and the processes. There's local, there's state, there's national.
Right. And we do have, I've been emailing with the state, I'm trying to get some information. I've got a link that it would not let me open. And that's what I've got to see if they can get that back. But it's basically the same data that we already have that shows all the maps, all the signatures, everything of where everything was adopted. It's about 500 something pages worth of documents, yeah. And showing the legitimacy of the district. The difference between the state one and the city one is the city one has to be adopted by city ordinance, where the state one, according to the state, does not have to be adopted by the city ordinance.
And likewise, a national may not need to have a state or a local designation prior to a national level of significance.
Right.
So that covers us on the districts. Now, the questions that arose regarding the legitimacy of the formation of the HPA itself, not just the districts. I will remind all members of this board that, long before any of us arrived on this board, myself included, there was a Article 10 to the city's land development regulations. I will quote to you from the very first sentence in section 10.1 of Article 10. The City Planning and Zoning Board shall serve as the City Historic Preservation Agency. It's the very first sentence in our LDRs. It is, codified within city regs that this board exists. Didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No, you're good.
Keep going.
You're good. I mean, that's basically where I'm at too with it. We do have legal counsel reviewing everything just to make sure everything is legitimized. And then once all that's done, our goal is to put a lot of that up on the website, as far as like the actual maps up on the website and stuff like that, so people can actually see the districts.
Now, if you wish, I've said this a number of times before, I pretty much do federal historic preservation law for a living. So if you need someone that can whip you up some good, high-quality GIS mapping products, let me know, and I'd be happy to, provide those as submittals for the city to post.
Okay, awesome.
Are there any other questions, comments, or items of discussion, since we are not yet at 6 p.m. and we have an attorney present, a city regulator present, and all of ourselves present? We need to go down any additional rabbit holes as to the validity or legitimacy of this board or the charge and mandate with which it is presented.
There was a comment that there's some authority from the Swanee Planning Agency or the Swanee Development Agency. There's our overseer, but it's the
I don't
same.
believe I see North Florida Planning
North
Council mentioned anywhere in Article 10 at all.
So that clarifies.
Now, might that have been someone that was confused? How does county handle issues of historic importance?
I'm not sure on the county's land development regulations, so I'm not sure how they do.
Because they also coordinate closely with North
Correct.
Florida Regional
Yeah.
Planning, right?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have, whenever I've heard people questioning the legitimacy of this, and one of their points for anybody, I guess, who's watching elsewhere, was how did it happen? And by that I mean, like, how were the districts formed? How were they made into districts? How is it approved? What's the process by which Lake City in 1994 did not have two nationally recognized historic preservation districts, and then in 1995 they did? Like, what was the impetus for it, and how was that ratified?
You want to take this, or you want me to?
I'll let you, you're the expert in that room.
All right. Prior to the designation, as I understand it, the city, the county, also the museum, along with some state level grant dollars, had put together a contracted historic structure and cultural resource assessment for the city of Lake City, identifying areas where substantial portions of the original historic fabric was still left, where potential districts could be identified and listed. This would have been before the 1994 designation. I think that report came out, I want to say, approximately 1991, 92. I've got a PDF of that one at the house I can take a look at. Following the completion of that document, along with the recommendations contained therein, all applicable municipal and local parties, as well as the museum, who was a key stakeholder in this, then initiated the process to have the Lake City Historic Commercial District and the Lake Isabella Residential Historic District identified, codified, outreached to property owners, and placed by the keeper of the register, of the National Register of Historic Places under the United States Department of Interior, placed upon those rolls. Now, along the way, it was also added to our local register, which I don't believe that got updated into our modern GIS system. That may only exist as paper markings on maps in the vault. But it was additionally listed to the Florida Master Site File through the Florida Division of Historic Resources, both as individual unique districts of state level significance to go alongside the national level of significance that those two districts held. Now, to do that, you have to have a certain amount of public outreach, meetings. There are a series of thresholds that have to be met. A certain percentage of property owners need to respond to their mailings in the affirmative that they, wish to be added into this district. There's a little bit of horse trading in terms of what is a contributing versus a non-contributing element, where the lines are going to be drawn. There was a series of planning meetings that took place in the early 90s in regards to this. And by, I believe, September of 1994, I believe, is when the city received back confirmation from the United States Department of the Interior that the properties had officially been listed by the keeper on the registers. So it's not a matter of just filling out forms and saying congratulations on the store. There's almost a year-long process that it took, beginning with a resource assessment that was conducted years prior using multiple different pots and flavors of both municipal, private, and partner dollars.
Cool. I just think that was a useful clarification based on some of the questions that I would ask.
Council?
Nothing to add other than, Mr. Kenneth's gonna be doing some further research and presenting that to the board eventually, and Mr. Angela, right?
Angela, yes.
Yes.
Man, if you like planning and zoning law, you're gonna love historic preservation law.
Can't wait.
Well, if there's no other topics for us to workshop, then I think we may have the opportunity to get out of here a little bit early, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Angelo.
The next meeting,
All right, our next meeting is yet to be announced, but Lord willing and the creek don't rise, I do believe it shall be the first Tuesday of August.
It'll always be the first Tuesday of August, unless we have a special call meeting.
Very nice. That being said, do we have
is that August 1st then?
Yes.
do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of adjournment by hand vote? Aye. Hands down. If you're opposed, you can stay. We stand adjourned.